Welcome to Easy Dharma for Difficult Times. These are evening sessions run by either myself or Pastor David, in which we will be sharing Dharma with you in little doses. So it will be a nice end to the day for you to learn a little bit more about Dharma and Dharma practice. So let me just refresh my screen to see who is online right now. So over the last couple of sessions, I think you know that I've covered the Four Noble Truths, and then I've also gone over the karma chart that was created by Rinpoche to actually show us how we should go about living our lives, and so to create positive karma and to stop ourselves from creating negative karma. And so in my last session, what I had been talking about was kind of an extension of the karma chart. So what I was talking about was actually the spirit realm. Now, the spirit realm, or the hungry ghost realm, as it's usually referred to, is actually one of the 6 realms of existence. And within Buddhism, we believe that due to the law of karma, which both myself and Pastor David have actually talked about, and if you want to know more, you should see our previous sessions on the Kechara Facebook page. Due to the law of karma, we're thrown uncontrollably into taking rebirth again and again within one of the 6 realms of existence. And one of these 6 realms is obviously the spirit realm. Okay, I've just seen a whole bunch of people come online. So let's see who's online. Yinping, hello. Martin is on. Hello, Cindy. And Sukfan's also on. Mr. Lum's back. Thank you for joining. Is a regular. You're a regular. Thank you very much. And Yusing and Karen Wong has also joined as well. Thank you very much for joining. Okay, so today is the exciting topic, which is continuing on from the last session. So in the last session, basically, I was explaining about the hungry ghost realm, or the spirit realm, and what I was sharing about that was basically the sufferings that you actually go through when you're in when you have to take rebirth as a spirit. So as I mentioned in the last session, there are actually 6 main sufferings that you experience when you're born as a spirit, and these are basically extreme heat, extreme cold, hunger, thirst, exhaustion, and fear. Now, you're asking me one question that I got after the session the other day was, what do you mean by they experience these sufferings? Basically, any experience that you go through when you're in a spirit body, when you've taken rebirth as a spirit, is always has one of these 6 sufferings. Okay, so any experience in any part of their lives always has one of these 6 sufferings. So they don't actually have any respite from these 6 things. Their entire lives are made up of going through experiences that either makes them feel extremely hot or extremely cold, very hungry, very thirsty, very exhausted, or very fearful. So their whole existence within the spirit realm is marked by these 6 things. And then what I talked about after that was actually what leads you to actually take rebirth in the spirit realm, and that is actually attachment. So we were talking about attachment, and I had some questions that I was answering some questions that people were posting. So because within that session, I wasn't able to finish answering all the questions. Today's session, I actually wanted to carry on with that and actually answer some of the questions that people were asking. And after that, what I wanted to talk about today is actually how the Buddhist practices, especially deity practices, help us to overcome any negative harm we may be receiving from some of these spirits. Okay, Some more people have joined us online. Keng Hoi Lee, hello. Pastor Albert is on. Kin Ho is also on. Oh, Sharon's here, and Chung is back online, and Elsie is here as well. Thank you very much. Good evening, and thank you for joining. So, I've got some questions from the last session that I wasn't able to answer. So there was a question asked by Yuseng. He said, Pastor, people in the spirit realms seem mentally stuck. They can't even seem to be able to seek any refuge. They lack any freedom or ability to make a choice. And actually, Yuseng, you've hit the nail on the head, as it were. Because when you're in the spirit realm, you're suffering from the 6 things I've mentioned previously. It's very difficult for you to have any other thoughts. And when you have any other thoughts, it is primarily based on attachment, which is something I covered at the end of the last session. So either it can be attachment for people, it can be attachment for a place or an object, any form of attachment, basically. So when you have this, A, because you're suffering, and B, because you have so much attachment, you don't actually have the chance to, or the kind of mental capability of actually thinking of something else. Especially things that are high in nature or things that seek to alleviate suffering in the long term. Now, coming back to the term hungry ghost, the reason why they're called hungry ghosts is because, again, one of the things that marks that kind of mode of existence is hunger or attachment for something. So they're constantly trying to fulfill that attachment. They don't have the mental bandwidth, as it were, to think about anything other than that particular attachment. So in that sense, yes, they are very stuck. And if you compare it to human years, ghosts, spirits, non-physical entities actually live for hundreds and thousands of years. So whereas a human life can be 60, 70, 80, 100 years, when you're reborn in the spirit realm, the lifespan can be hundreds and hundreds of thousands of years, okay? According to our measure of time. So it is an existence that's quite long, and it has all this suffering. That is actually said for the majority of spirits and hungry ghosts, but there is a very small majority that do actually have the capacity to think of something higher, to think of trying to alleviate their suffering further than just getting hold of whatever they're attached to. These spirits, as it were, can actually listen and receive blessings from higher teachings. That's when we say, whenever we do any prayers, wherever we have any altars, wherever the Buddha is present, wherever you recite mantras, there's a saying with scriptures that you should do your mantras out loud enough so you're disturbing people, but just say it out aloud a little bit. And the reason is because it said that if there are this particular type of spirit who can actually think on a higher level, who can have that little bit of extra mental bandwidth, mental leeway to actually think of something higher, they're actually attracted to and blessed by the sounds of the prayers and the mantras that you're engaging in. So when you do that, when you do your prayers and everything, we do say to recite it out aloud, because even if you don't have the capability or the ability to feel or to sense them or, to perceive them or whatever, if they are around, they can and do get the benefit from hearing you recite those prayers, okay? So I've seen a lot more people joined. All right, so let's see who else has joined. Ramesh has joined. Hello. Sylvester, Pastor Tapming is here. Seifong is also online. Hello. Cynthia, Pastor Gimli, thanks for joining. Eduardo Fernandez Espino, I hope I pronounced your surname correctly. Hello, thank you for joining. Ken's also online. Oh, we have a lot of people today. Benkui is online. Pastor Yi is also online. And Aquarius Gratho is also online. Hello, thank you very much for joining. So today I'm going to be continuing my previous session of talking about spirits in the spirit realm and answering any questions you have. So if you do have any more questions, please do ask it on the comments, and then I'll be answering those as well. So I've got 2 more questions from the previous session which were unanswered. So the next question was asked by Pastor Tatming. So Pastor Tatming asks, it is said that when someone commits suicide, that person ends up becoming a wandering spirit, and this person continues to repeat the action of committing suicide repeatedly. What is your view on this? So Pastor Tatming is asking the question that if a person has committed suicide, do they automatically become a spirit, and would this spirit continually go through committing the action of committing suicide? And the answer to this is that when a person commits suicide, it's very traumatic. It's very it can be quite violent, and it is very traumatic. I'm not just talking about the physical aspect of it, of ending your own life. I'm also talking about the mental and the emotional state of it at the same time. Now, when somebody is actually led to commit suicide because they have all these emotions and these thoughts going through their head, all of this it can be boiled down to a form of attachment. So when they do commit the act and then they have to take rebirth, a lot of these people actually do end up going to the spirit realm, just because the act of committing suicide, the final act, was so physically and emotionally, mentally traumatic that at the moment of death, it opens up a karma similar, which in this case would be attachment, which would lead to a rebirth as a spirit. But this isn't the case for all of them. It is, I'm giving a generalization here, okay? And then when they're in their new body as a spirit, because they went through such a traumatic experience that led them to that new rebirth as a spirit. Yes, some of them actually do repeat the act of having committed suicide again and again and again as a spirit, because they are so attached to those feelings, those emotions, and the karmic results of that physical action. They need to keep repeating it again and again. So what Pastor Tatming has said is actually quite true, but it is a generalization. It doesn't mean that everybody who actually, commits the act of suicide will be led to having to take rebirth in the spirit realm, but it is a very large possibility going on how karma works, on how the throwing karma works at the point of somebody's death, which is what actually leads you to take a rebirth. Okay. So I hope I've answered that question. The third question that we had was from Sharon. And Sharon asked, if we get spirit encounters due to our karmic connection to it, is there a way for us to cut off that karmic tie? Now, this is a very good question, and it leads me perfectly into what I wanted to discuss next. So up until this point, I've been talking about how one takes rebirth within the spirit realm and what leads you to take rebirth, which is obviously the law of karma, and particularly attachment. So then we get onto the topic that a lot of people ask about, which is that some people do get spirit attacks or are disturbed by spirits, or have a tendency, the ability to see them, to perceive them, to hear them, to feel them. And even if some people aren't born with that ability, they kind of tend to develop it during life through many methods. It can just open up one day due to karmic affinity and karmic predispositions, or it can be something that you can actually try to learn how to do and open up that ability, which is not something I would recommend any of you trying to do. in these cases, either if you have the ability to perceive them or whatever, or if they come to disturb you, people go through a lot of varying experiences of how it actually affects them. Mostly it will affect people physically, but it can affect people mentally. And there are quite a varying signs that can appear if somebody is actually under spirit disturbances or has a spirit affliction. And a lot of people ask, how does that tie in with karma, and how does it all work? Why is it that if I'm, in my house, or if I go to somewhere haunted, I'm the one that is afflicted, but the person next to me isn't? So it basically actually comes down to karma and the opening of karmic connections. Now, within Buddhism, we believe in countless previous lives. So basically, I have been born countless times before, and maybe the ghost or the spirit afflicting me has also, is gone through the same process. Now, throughout that process, there will have been lifetimes where we will have known each other. There will have been lifetimes where that spirit was my mother, and vice versa, or father, or brother, or sister, husband, wife, lover, colleague, son, daughter, whatever it is. Name a particular type of relationship in your life at the moment, just pick a random example, and you will have been that with basically every spirit that there is now, because we've just had so many lifetimes together. So actually, we all have this kind of karmic connection, this karmic connection with each other. And so what happens is, in this lifetime, taking it from a human example, from our own perspective, we have the karma to be born to our parents. Our particular parents in this life. We have the karma to have the brothers and sisters we do, or to have the husband or wife, brother, sister, son or the daughter, whatever. We have the karmic connection from previous lives to actually have this sort of be in this sort of relationship in this life. And what happens is, in this life, it's just that the karmic conditions are correct for this connection to manifest in the way that it has. That being said, we also have a karmic connection to all beings in the six realms as well. So the spirit realm is no different, okay? So when a person is afflicted by a spirit, or can perceive a spirit, or can interact with a spirit, what it is that this karmic connection is there. It's just that the conditions for that karmic connection to manifest itself is correct at that present moment, at that time. Okay, so that's why you are able to perceive something non-physical. Or that non-physical being is able to afflict you in any way. So usually in the case of spirit affliction, what happens is there's a negative karma that involves you and the spirit from a previous lifetime. Now, probably in a previous lifetime, you've actually ended up hurting that particular spirit. So in this lifetime, when as a human being and the other party is a spirit, that karmic connection manifests in that spirit trying to harm you or afflicting harm on you. So that is where spirit affliction comes from. That is the ultimate root of spirit affliction, which is karma. It's karma between yourself and the spirit that's been created in a previous lifetime. Now, what Sharon was asking is, how do you go about cutting that karmic connection so that that spirit is no longer able to harm you? And what I mean by cutting karmic connection basically means is that the connection between the two of you is purified, because that connection is actually due to karma. And how you go about purifying that negative karma that actually causes that affliction is through various Buddhist practices. And the most obvious one that is known, especially within Tibetan Buddhism, is actually practicing deity practices. So, for example, in the last session, I talked about Rinpoche sharing the practice of Singdongma with me, and through that practice, I was able to cut connections with the spirits that I was seeing, I was hearing. But there are a multitude of deities that are known to do this. Okay, for example, you have deities like Singdongma, you have deities like Dukkar, You have deities like Vajrapani, mostly known as the wrathful deities, are quite well known for this. And on top of that, you do have the practices of Dharma protectors. For example, Satrap or Dojo Shugden is very, very well known to helping people when they have spirit afflictions. Okay, but there are even deities that you might not necessarily think about when you're talking about spirit afflictions, and these will include deities like Lama Tsongkhapa is fantastic for spirit afflictions as well. And another one which may surprise all of you, many of you, is actually Medicine Buddha. Okay, Medicine Buddha is also extremely powerful for helping with things like spirit afflictions. And so the way that these practices actually work is it comes down to the two things that I always mention whenever I give a sharing, and any of you who've been to any of my sharings or classes that I've done before in Kechara will know that I always harp on these two things, which is purification of negative karma and accumulation of merit. Okay? When you engage in any form of Buddhist practice, these two things happen automatically. There are certain practices that concentrate on one or the other more, but any Buddhist practice you do will necessarily include these two things. And this is what is happening when you engage in practices, in deity practices, to specifically in order to cut a spirit affliction. You're basically purifying that negative karma and generating enough merit so that the energy generated from the merit can actually overpower the negative effects of that particular karmic connection. Okay, so this kind of links on to something I want to touch on a little bit, which is on wrathful deities. Why is a deity wrathful? Okay, deities are wrathful not because they're there to like scare away the spirit. You know, some people think, especially if they're from Asia, that if your deity is more scary or more fiercer than the spirit is going to get scared and run away just because the deity that you're practicing is much more fierce. Okay, that is not the case within Buddhist practice. Okay. The reasons why deities are fierce, like Singdongma is fierce, like Dojo Shugden can be fierce in certain forms, is not actually to scare away negative entities. Okay, the fierceness is actually a manifestation of their compassion, and this is going to sound very, very strange. Okay, but usually we say when deities are fierce, they're more okay, the analogy we usually use is if there's a child that's playing with fire and the mother comes along, the first thing the mother is going to do is going to scold the child for trying to play with fire. Okay, it is not because the mother is angry at the child per se for being a child, but the mother is angry because the mother is trying to stop the child from hurting themselves. Okay, from hurting themselves, from getting burnt by playing with fire. So that's kind of the analogy that Samrimchi used to use all the time for describing why deities are fierce, because it's out of their compassion. Now, when you're talking about purification of negative karma and specifically spirit affliction, this fierceness that the deities have and that the deities manifest is not actually towards the spirit per se. What it is towards is actually your negative karma. It is towards your negative karma and what causes you to create that negative karma in the first place, which is something that I actually talked about in my previous sessions when I was talking about the Four Noble Truths, which is your ignorance, your attachment, and your hatred. When deities are fierce, it is a reminder to you. Rinpoche has explained it in a way to me that it's a physical reminder. It's a visual reminder to show you just how compassionate the Buddhas are, the enlightened beings are, to remind you to stop doing negative things, to stop doing negative actions. It's a physical and visual reminder to tell you that they can't, the Buddhas, the enlightened beings cannot stand the suffering that you're going through, cannot stand any form of negative situation that you go through in life. And that is why they get so worked up. Just like a mother gets worked up or a father gets worked up when they see their child playing with fire. That's how the deities get worked up, as it were, and that's where the wrathful energy comes from. So the wrathful energy within Buddhism is completely based on compassion. So when you practice these deities, yes, the mantras and the prayers themselves are very powerful in and of themselves because of just how the enlightened energies have manifested to be able to purify the negative karma and generate a tremendous amount of merits to be able to cut the karmic connection between yourself and a spirit that's afflicting you. And that is how they help. But Rinpoche has always said when you're doing these practices, the actual best thing and the way to multiply the efficacy of these practices is to actually generate compassion. When you generate compassion, the powers of these mantras, the powers of these prayers are magnified immensely. Okay, so I just wanted to explain that because somebody had asked me that offline after my previous session. Okay, I've got another question. Oh, I've got some more people come on.
There's a question for me, Jesse, and costume.
Okay, all right. Okay, I'm going to have to refresh my page because I can't see the questions. Okay. All right. So while waiting for my screen to refresh so I can see everybody's questions, I'll just share that after I finish everybody's answering people's questions, I'm going to be sharing a short practice that you can do at home to be able to clear your house, your building. You can even do it in your offices of negative energies, of any negative beings that might want to that you might have a karmic connection with, that might create a negative situation for you. So okay, let me see. The first one's from Doreen, is it?
Doreen Chastin.
Okay. Hi, Doreen. Doreen asks, will there be Buddha enlightened beings in the spirit realm to bless them or to make a connection with them? Or can they only be blessed or connected to the Buddhas in the human realm? Okay, this is a very good question. So the question is, do the enlightened beings, I'm going to rephrase the question, do the enlightened beings actually manifest within the spirit realm so that they can bless the spirits there, or can spirits only be blessed by making a connection with Buddhas or enlightened beings that are manifest within the human realm? Actually, when you're a Buddha or an enlightened being, you can have an infinite number, a countless number of emanations. So we say that. So usually, when we think of a Buddha, we actually think of a Buddha in the form of a celestial, a divine being that's kind of outside ourselves. So, but we also think of Buddhas like physical Buddhas. For example, when they take incarnations, physical human incarnations, like Buddha Shakyamuni, or maybe like your guru, like Tsamrimji was. Okay, so they're physical manifestations of enlightened beings. So when spirits do make a connection do come across these physical manifestations as physical human beings, obviously there is a connection and they get blessings from them. But the thing is that Buddhas can also manifest as anything they want. So of course they can manifest within the spirit realm as a spirit if they wanted to be able to bless other spirits, for other spirits to make a connection with them. They can. Another thing so yes, the answer is yes, they can. That the Buddhas can, and they probably do because they are compassionate. But you should also remember that spirits also travel at the speed of thought. So if they think about the Buddha, or a Buddha statue, or a place, or a particular holy place, or a particular holy site, they can actually travel there instantly. So when they travel there at the speed of thought, and because they're now in this holy place where there is an enlightened being, or where the energies of an enlightened being are, they do gain blessings from there, and do make a connection with the enlightened beings through that as well. Okay, so I hope I've answered your question. Chia Singh also asks a question. Hello, thanks for joining. What decides if an entity of what origin were attached? What decides if an entity of what origin were to attach to someone, and how do we clear those entities? Okay, I'm gonna try. I think I understand what you're asking. I think you're asking how do spirits attach to people, basically. So there's a couple of ways to that a spirit will attach themselves to you. One is if you have the ability to see them or perceive them in this life, or you develop that ability, and if you're going around somewhere and they kind of realize that you have that ability, they will start following. They can start following you, and the reason that they do that is because of the mechanism that allows them to do that is obviously because there is a karmic connection between you and that particular spirit from a previous lifetime. Okay, but it just doesn't have to be that. Even if you don't have the ability to see them or to perceive them, you can still be afflicted by them, and that affliction basically comes about with either you going to somewhere that going to an area that they're in, basically, and that because you enter their area, they kind of realize that you're there, and because of that karmic connection, they can attach to you and kind of afflict you in that way. Other instances also happen if it's if they're attached to a physical location, and for example, a house or a building, and if you go to live in that house or go to visit that house, you can be afflicted by them while you're in that space. Also, that they can attach themselves to, because they're attached to maybe a physical object from when they were alive, such things, what do you call them? Antiques. So like a lot of antiques usually have things, not usually, but sometimes have things attached to them. So if you get given an antique or an heirloom or something along that line, and if someone died that was particularly attached to it, there's a possibility that they could have taken rebirth as a spirit, but because they're attached to that particular object, they can afflict anybody who owns that particular object. On the more negative side of it, spirits can actually be sent after you by somebody who's practicing black magic. So if somebody is practicing black magic, they can build a relationship with a particular spirit and basically send them after you. But that is only that spirit can only afflict you and will only afflict you if you have a strong karmic connection with them from a previous lifetime, and if the conditions are right for that karmic condition to actually open. All right? If you don't have the karma to be afflicted by spirits, no matter how much spirits a black magician sends at you, you're not going to be afflicted, all right? So, for example, if you try to send black magic at the Buddha, there's no way that the Buddha will be afflicted by black magic or spirits, because the Buddha has no karma, okay? Has no negative karma, all right? And how do you clear those entities? That's the second part of the question. Now, to clear those entities, usually what people who are afflicted just want one thing. You just want to get rid of them. That's it, all right? And there are quite a few practices that you can engage in. You can engage in the practice of Doja Shugden. Is a very efficacious practice to do. It provides a lot of protection, but at the same time, again, what I was talking about earlier, purifies that negative karma, that connection between yourself and the others and the spirit. Doja Shugden also has a wrathful form known as Traksei, who is excellent and for very, very, very heavy spirit affliction cases. You also have practices that I've mentioned, like Dukar and Singdongma, and even Medicine Buddha can help. Okay, so there are a multitude of practices that you can do and on a daily basis, that until your problem is cleared, and you can actually keep up those practices to keep up that energy of protection around you, so you don't actually get afflicted by anything else in the future if you're worried about things like that. So there's that, and I'm going to be sharing one particular method after I answer everybody's question. That is another method that you can use to actually clear negative entities from the space you're either living in, you're working in, things like that. All right. Okay, we have a funny comment by Chung. Because protectors are to protect the Dharma practitioner, aren't they fears so that we feel safe? All right. I mean, I would love a poodle to protect me, but it will probably not cut it. All right. Unless the poodle's enlightened. If the poodle's enlightened, then he'll be able to protect you. All right. But yes, they do manifest that fierceness is because because it comes from that energy of wrath, and that energy of wrath is very good at protecting quickly. All right. Okay, so I have one more quest. I think I have one more question. Oh, some people have joined. Um, Hello, JP. Hello, Rimji. Thank you for joining. We have another question from Chung. Because hungry ghosts occupy the same space as humans, Buddhas will probably need not manifest in that realm. Okay, so Chung's brought up a point, which is that because hungry ghosts kind of exist within the same space that we exist in as humans, the Buddhas don't need to manifest within the spirit realm. And actually, Chung, you're right in the sense that spirits do come, and I mean they do exist in our space. Okay, it's just that usually we cannot see them, we cannot feel them, we cannot perceive them. These sort of things, but they are always around us because our realms are quite overlapped. However, in the spatial field of existence, there is a spirit realm that is separate, and this spirit realm is a realm just completely filled with spirits. So it's not like there are humans there, so the Buddhas can manifest as a spirit within the actual spirit realm. And the spirit realm, or also known as the city of spirits, is what I talked about in the last session. It is a place completely made up of is black. Everything is just black. Everything is dark. There's no light. There's no trees. There's no food. There's nothing that we know. And it's not like our physical environment. It's nothing. It's just black. Everything is just black and dark, and that's where the birth of all spirits are birthed from, that take rebirth in. Okay, and this is if you want to read more about that, it's explained in the Lamrim on the section on the sufferings of the hungry ghosts. But if they happen to come to our environment, our existence, and the Buddhas are here, then obviously they will be blessed by them. But that isn't to say that the Buddhas will not take manifestations to bless spirits within the actual spirit realm. Okay? All right. We've had a couple more people join. Hello, waiting. Hello, Pastor Hani, Julia, Caroline. Thanks for joining. Got one question from William Leong. Is it true that spirits are no limitation in space and times? Means spirit can travel through time. Okay. Spirits, the lifespan of a spirit, which I kind of mentioned earlier, perhaps you weren't online at that point, but there's a difference between the lifespan of a human and the lifespan of a spirit. For example, a human can live for 70, 80, 90, 100 years, and that's our usual human lifespan, but spirits can actually live for hundreds and thousands of years. So in that sense, that their lives are very long, their lives are very drawn out, okay? When, as a spirit, you basically travel at the speed of thought. So basically, if I'm a spirit right now and I think of the Eiffel Tower in Paris, instantly I can travel to the Eiffel Tower in Paris. And then instantly I think, okay, I want to be back in Kechara Forest Retreat in Malaysia. Instantly I'll travel back here to Kechara Forest Retreat. So spatially, there is no limitation for a spirit because they they travel at the speed of thought. And because they don't have a physical body, they're not bound by physical laws that we as human beings are bound by. So they can basically travel spatially very quickly at the speed of thought. In terms of time, they cannot travel through time. But because maybe, for example, it may appear like that for us as human beings, that they may be able to travel through time, and I'm going to kind of try to explain it. Rinpoche once had a particular came across a particular person. A person came to see Rinpoche for a spirit disturbance issue, and this particular person could actually remember one of their previous lives. Segments, like small memories of these previous lives. Just one previous life. So this person told Rinpoche, I remember in this previous life, I was actually afflicted by a spirit. And then he described what that spirit looked like. And it was a man. He had kind of like black hair that was a bit disheveled. And then he said that in this life, he is like, when he was about in his teens, this spirit kind of came back and started afflicting him. So he said, how is it possible that I remember being afflicted by a spirit in a previous life, and now in this life I'm afflicted by the exact same spirit, because he's appearing exactly the same? Is it the same spirit? And Rinpoche actually told him, yes, it is the same spirit. So he asked Rinpoche, how can that spirit time travel? Because it appears like that spirit is time traveling. Rinpoche said it's actually not that spirit is time traveling. It is the exact same spirit. But what's happened in the meantime is you actually died in your previous lifetime, and then you took rebirth as a human again, and in a new form, and now you're being afflicted by the exact same spirit. So the spirit is the one spirit, but you've actually he's afflicting you over 2 lifetimes. Okay, and that is due to that strong karmic connection. So in that sense, for him, it seemed like the spirit could time travel. But in actual fact, it was because the spirit has such a long lifespan that even after taking rebirth as a human again, this particular individual was still being disturbed by that one spirit. I hope that kind of answers your question. Okay. All right. So I think William asked again, means spirit can travel through time. So I hope I've explained that. If it's unclear, just ask again, okay? Okay, it's getting a bit complicated now because Chung made a point, which I'll read out. Because spirits travel at the speed of thought, they do not occupy any space. The concept of space-time does not apply to them. And yes, if you're getting into the physics of it and all of that, then yes. But hopefully I tried to explain it in a way that's not so physics-based. All right. If anything is unclear, please let me know. I think those are all the questions so far. Who?
I think space travel, the speed of thought refers to physical travel. You can go to a different location at the speed of thought.
Yep.
That does not necessarily mean that time does not affect them. You cannot time travel away from.
Okay. Pastor David is seated very, very, very far behind my camera right now, and he brought up a good point, which is that spirits. When I'm talking about spirits time traveling, when I'm talking about spirits traveling spatially, okay, it is not that they are not bound by time. It is just that they travel almost instantaneously, because for us as humans, the speed of thought is very quick, okay, but this thinking itself also there's time involved in that. So it's not that they're not bound by time, it's just that they move spatially, travel very quickly at the speed of thought, which for us as humans is almost instantaneous. Okay. Yeah, I hope that answers the questions. Okay, I don't have any more questions at the moment. If you do have, then please do put them in the comment section. Now, what I want to get into is I want to share a technique with you, a very special technique that Rinpoche taught me and a couple of other people. And this is a technique to basically clear your space of. What do I mean by space? Space basically means your house, it means your office, it means anywhere, that you're living or that you're working, if you're able to do this at work. Most people are not, but at least you can do it in your house or your apartment or wherever you are, okay? And this is a technique that basically it pushes away basically any negative entities or any spirits that you may have a karmic connection with that may cause a particular affliction. Or if you are undergoing a spirit affliction, this particular technique can actually and does help in alleviating that. And it basically provides you with a sphere of protection around a physical location, okay? Now, you use this particular... Now, there are obviously visualizations and prayers you can do to provide yourself, an individual or a person, with a sphere of protection. And for those visualizations, for those techniques, please do go and read the blog post article on Traksay. Included in that is a very strong visualization which you can engage in every single day to create a protection sphere around you that can stop any negative entities or even just negative energy, okay, from afflicting you in daily situation. What I'm going to share with you today is a technique that Rinpoche shared, which is for a particular location. So this is, again, I repeat, this is location based, okay? And basically this is known as doing sang. Now, the word sang in Tibetan, a lot of you will know it if you're practicing Buddhism or you have been around in Kechara for a while. You will know that there is something called sang, and sang basically means incense. Now, sang, the word sang is not talking about incense stick. It is talking about loose incense. So it could be powdered incense or powdered herbs or dried herbs, which basically you burn, and it emits a very strong and thick smoke. And that's basically what doing sang is. Now, there are actually two forms of doing sang. One is known that we actually know most common is a sang offering. Now, sang offerings are usually done outside, and when you burn a lot of sang to generate a lot of smoke, and that smoke is actually what you're offering, and you're offering that to the Buddhas, all right? Now, this is an offering, so that's sang offering, all right? So this is a technique that is used primarily for clearing obstacles and generating a lot of merit. Now, if you've been to Kechara Forest Retreat and you have been to our Dorje Shuden Grotto, you will see that there is a sangpur there. So sangpur basically means a place where you burn sang and you make that particular sang offering. Today, I am going to talk about another form of sang, okay? And this is basically sang to purify your space, okay? Now, if any of you have been to Kechara during the day, you will have seen, usually myself, going around the place, especially indoors and in the office area with sang, and I'm basically burning it. I'm basically what we term as sanging the office or the area. And this is actually following a technique that Rinpoche shared with me to basically clear away these negativities and clear away any entities that may want to harm you, or just to create a very good positive energy within your particular space. Now, usually what I use, I'm going to show you here, this is called Ganden Kempa. Now, this is a loose powder, is a loose incense. So it's basically herbs that have kind of been ground up I'm sure you can, and I doubt you can see through the packaging, but it's basically a loose herb that's kind of been ground down to be a bit more fine. And what I usually do with that is put it into a container and then basically light it. Now, once you light it, anybody who's burnt sang or ganen kempa knows that it emits a lot of smoke. Now, within this technique, what you're actually going to use is you're going to use that smoke to purify your space. Now, so you can use any basic sang. You can use sang powder, like powdered incense, to do this. You can use ganden kempa. You can basically burn any sort of herbs, dried herbs. Usually there is like we do have a blog post actually. It's called the 10 herbs for purification, or 10 best herbs for purification, or something along that line. And in that are 10 herbs that are recommended for doing things for clearing space using this technique. So things like juniper, ground sandalwood is good, cedarwood is good, white sage is good. Rinpoche liked white sage quite a bit. So white sage you can get like in smudging sticks. You can use the stick instead of actually burning it in a container. All right. So you've lit the. So basically the procedure is you prepare your container and then you light your sang, and then you wait for it to start smoking up a bit. Now, here is where there's two ways of doing it. The actual way of doing it is to basically go through the prayers to Dorje Shugden, because this sang calls upon the energies of Dorje Shugden to come and to assist you in purifying your environment, purifying your space. So usually you'd have to do the entire Ganden Lagyama, which is the Guru Yoga first, and then at least do the invocation to Dorje Shugden to invoke the energies of Dorje Shugden. But Rinpoche actually gave me a quick workaround, as it were. So if you don't have the time to do that, basically you use protector rice. Okay, protector rice is rice that has been blessed by Dorje Shugden while in trance of his oracle. And usually it's colored like it's either red color rice or yellow color, or a mixture of both. So when you're burning your sang, you place 1 or 2 grains of protector rice on top of your sang. So what happens is, as your sang is burning, it will burn the rice as well. Now, this rice is so highly blessed that the energies of Dorje Shugden are contained within like these very, very small grains of rice. And they're very highly blessed and they're very highly charged. So as the grains of rice are burnt on the sang, the energy from the rice, the energies of Dorje Shugden actually get released, as it were, into the smoke that comes out with your sang as well. So the energies of Dorje Shugden through the protector rice actually empowers the smoke, the rest of the smoke coming out from your sang, to be very, very powerful, to have a lot of purification abilities, okay? So then basically you walk around your space, you walk around your house, and you basically try and get the smoke as much physically to as many places within your house, within your environment as you can. Because the power of Dorje Shugden is released into this smoke basically creates this beneficial energy within your space that purifies and that also blesses at the same time. All right, but there is a visualization that goes along with this. All right, so it's not just doing the sang. At the same time, you should also recite mantras. Now, for most people, if you're doing this for protection reasons, you can recite Dorje Shugden's mantra while you're doing this. And obviously, before all of this, you take refuge, then you do your sang, and then put your protector rice in, then you recite Dorje Shugden's mantra as you're going round. And at the same time, this is the visualization. So there are 2 forms to this visualization. I will share the longer form first. Basically, this is for a house that has multiple stories, or a space that has multiple stories. So if you've got a ground floor and then a first floor or a second floor. So basically, you invoke Dorje Shugden to come and sit on top of your particular building, that particular space that you want to purify. And how this works is that you basically imagine Dorje Shugden coming forth, and he is so big, sitting on his snow lion, that the snow lion's paws, one paw is on every corner at the top of your particular building. So you visualize and you imagine this. If you can't do it, you just think strongly that Dorje Shugden, one paw of each, one paw is on each of the four corners of your house or your building. And then basically you visualize white light descending from Dorje Shugden's heart. It comes down from Dorje Shugden's heart and it goes into your building. And when it goes into your building, it becomes like, it grows and grows and grows and grows and grows. So you can actually use the smoke as a visual aid to help you visualize that white light that kind of goes into your house and expands and expands and expands and expands out. So it expands out to the extent that it basically forms a dome over your house. Okay, and that dome is just pure white energy. Now, as it's expanding and moving out, it's also expelling all the negativities, which you can visualize as black smoke or negative entities or negative energy, black smoke going out and being pushed out as that white light extends and becomes basically a dome over your house. Now, once that all the negativity has gone and it's become that big dome, then you visualize that basically no negative thing can actually come into that white dome, and anything that is inside that white dome, namely your house, your office, whatever, is protected and is blessed. And you keep doing as you're doing this, you recite Dorje Shugden's mantra. Okay, so that is one visualization that you can do while you're doing sang. And then once you've finished doing it, you obviously do your dedication. Now, there's a difference between this visualization and normal visualizations that you do with deity practices, because in normal deity practices, you visualize that the particular deity actually dissolves into you. In this particular visualization, you don't do that, because you actually are trying to invoke the energies of Dorje Shugden to always be around, to always be doing this particular thing. So you don't dissolve Dorje Shugden into you at this point. When you end, you just think strongly after you've done your dedication that Dorje Shugden is still there and that white light is still there and you're completely protected. Okay? That is the first visualization that you can do. And that's more from the angle of protection. Now, if you're doing it more from the angle of blessing or purification, the visualization is a bit different. In this visualization, you, as you are sanging your house or your office, your environment, you think strongly that your house or your environment is actually the mandala of Dorje Shugden. Okay, so you imagine Dorje Shugden in the middle of your house, in the middle of your space. You imagine his entire entourage around him, and you visualize Kachamarpo Namkapadzin at your front door, and your entire space you visualize, or if you can't visualize it, you think strongly that it is Dorje Shugden's mandala. And when you invoke Dorje Shugden, he'll come and he resides in your house as his mandala, okay? And as you go around your house sanging, smoking with the smoke from the sang, you're basically offering the sang to Dorje Shugden and his entire entourage. Now, if you have maybe more than one story, so a ground floor, a first floor, and maybe even a second floor, and if you're capable of doing it, you basically visualize the ground floor as Dorje Shugden and his entourage, the first floor as Satrap and his entourage, and the top floor as Amitabha. Okay, so it's actually Dorje Shugden's entire mandala. You can also do that visualization. Now, if you want to read about Dorje Shugden's mandala, please go onto the blog. There is an article that describes Dorje Shugden's mandala that you can study, that you can read up. All right. Again, at the end of this, once you've finished and you do your dedication, again, you do not dissolve Doja Shugden and the mandala into you, you think strongly that they are still there. When you think strongly that they're still there, you actually keep these energies of Doja Shugden, his protective energies, within your house, within your space. So those are the two visualizations that I wanted to share with you. So again, the procedure for doing this is first you take refuge and you generate bodhicitta. Now, if you have protector rice, it is not necessary for you to do the entire Gandenla Gyama, Guru Yoga, and the invocation to Doja Shukden. You just burn the protector rice. This is a shortcut that Sam Rinpoche advised because the energies are all held within those small grains of rice that you need. Otherwise, you actually do need to invoke upon the energies of Doja Shugden to come to bless the Sang, to bless your area, okay? Then as you're doing it, you go around reciting Doja Shugden's mantra and you do one of the two visualizations that I've shared with you. Either the protective dome of white light with Doja Shugden sitting on top of your house, or you do the visualization that your house, your space, is actually the mandala of Doja Shugden. And once you've finished sanging, you can do a dedication. But when you're doing your dedication, you think very strongly that Doja Shugden's presence, the energies of Doja Shugden, his protective energies, his energies of blessing, are still within your house, are still within your space. And that's how you finish. Now, when you finish your sang, I do suggest you put it outside of your house, or outside of your space, because if you've burnt a lot of sang, your house is now going to be full of a lot of smoke. So you do put it outside of your house. Now, where Rinpoche told me to put it is actually outside the front door. Because it turns the sang into an offering. Because if you've done that visualization, it's an offering to Doja Shugden who's sitting on top of your house. If you've done the visualization where it's the mandala, it's still considered, it turns into an offering to the mandala of Doja Shugden because your house is the actual mandala. So I hope I've explained these two methods, and these two are very, very powerful methods of basically clearing your space, clearing your house, your office, if you want to do it in your office, of negative energies, of negative spirits. This is something that Rinpoche actually had implemented within Ladrang just to help bless the people working in Ladrang, also in KFR, and also to provide them with blessing, because when they can also receive the blessings because of the energies of Doja Shugden are present in the smoke from the sang. So when they do inhale a little bit of the smoke, they are blessed as well. So I hope everybody's learned a little bit about sanging your house or your office or your environment. And if it's something that you want to do, I do suggest doing it. It's very, very powerful. And yeah, I wanted to share that with those two with you. I've got a couple of questions. I think there is... Okay, Elsie asked a question, can anyone practice Traksay? Yes, anyone can practice Traksay. Because Traksay is a form of Doja Shugden, there's nothing wrong with practicing Traksay, especially the way that Rinpoche has compiled the Traksay prayers on the article, on the blog post. Everything's completely safe for you to practice. However, if you are being afflicted by a spirit, I would suggest that you contact Kechara, one of the pastors, to actually discuss what's going on if you believe you are being afflicted, and to discuss what you can actually do. Because in most cases, when people are being afflicted by a spirit, it's not necessary to go to Traksay automatically, because Traksay's practice is very wrathful. Most people, for most spirit disturbance cases, the normal practice of Doja Shugden is more than enough. Traksay is only used for very, very strong, very, very heavy spirit afflictions and cases of black magic, for very, very strong cases. But if it's light cases, or maybe you're just worried about this happening, just practice Doja Shugden, because Doja Shugden practice is enough to actually be able to counter all of this anyway. It's just Truxay is very powerful in the sense that it's for the very extreme cases, all right? And if you are going through any spirit disturbance cases or you are being disturbed, please do contact Kechara, one of the pastors, and who can advise you more what to do about your specific case, all right?
Small question by Karen.
Okay, sorry, I missed a question. Caroline asked, are spirits attracted to mantra? Okay, they're not attracted to mantra. Basically, when you do, I explained this a little bit at the beginning. When you do any prayers, when you do any mantras, if there are spirits around and they are within your area when you're saying prayers, when you're reciting mantras, they will come to listen. All right? The reason why they will come to listen is because they would like a blessing. So when you recite a mantra, when you recite prayers out aloud, non-physical entities do hear those and do come and may be around you around those times, because basically when you recite a mantra out aloud, when you recite prayers, you're sending enlightened energies into your environment. So when the spirits are there, it's like us. Why do we go to a temple? Why do we go to see a holy monk? Why do we go to prayers during certain festivals? Why do we go partake in those prayers? Because we actually want the blessings from those prayers and from those mantras, right? So it's the same with spirits. When they hear prayers, when they hear mantras, they also want they also want blessings. So they will come to hear the prayers so that they can be blessed by it. But if you're worried about, if you're reciting, I don't know, Migsama again and again and again, that you're going to be afflicted because there's all these spirits coming, don't worry about that, because the only things that will come are going to be positive spirits that actually want to receive a blessing because they know that what you're doing is beneficial. They just want a little blessing from that. Okay, so don't be worried about, I'm going to be attracting spirits when I'm reciting prayers or doing mantras. Okay, that's not the case. It's just they're actually always within our environment, but they do seek blessings as and when they can. All right. Do I have one more question? Oh, there's a question by Ben Kui, which I see. I don't see any other questions. Okay, so I'll answer Ben Kui's question. Which visualization do you usually do and why? Okay, the usual visualization that I do is Dorje Shugden's, the visualization of Dorje Shugden's mandala. Okay. Those of you who know me or who have been in Kechara during the day, as I said before, you've probably seen me swinging my sang pot around and singing everywhere. This is something that Rinpoche asked me to do every now and then on a regular basis. One is a couple of people can be within La Drang, especially, magnets. They how do I say? They're quite open to seeing spirits or being seeing them or hearing them or feeling them. It's not that they will be that afflicted. It's not that they'll be afflicted by them, because we're actually protected. We're in Kechara Forest Retreat. It's just that they're more open to seeing them or feeling them, and when this happens, they can actually feel a little bit drained physically. It's not anything negative, it's just that the way it manifests. So when you do that, because they receive the blessings, in this case it's more of the blessing from the sang smoke, that they don't get that drained feeling as often. The other reason why I do the mandala of the mandala visualization is because Kechara Forest Retreat is itself the mandala of Dorje Shugden. because that is the way that, because Rinpoche lived here, because there have been so many prayers, so many holy monks have come, and there have been so many different types of prayers that have been done here. And basically, Kechara Forest Retreat is itself the mandala of Dorje Shugden. And so Rinpoche, out of the two visualizations, that is the one that Rinpoche told me to do specifically for when I do sang buildings within Kechara Forest Retreat, is to do that particular sang, because it is again to draw upon the energies of Dorje Shugden to be here, for this place to be quite sacred, to be a place that is blessed, full of blessed energy. So when that people come, they're blessed by it. And any of the work that we do here as Dharma practitioners, as people who are helping to run Kechara, basically blesses as many people and helps as many people as possible. So that's the reason, that's the visualization that I do when I do the sang.
We have a question about by William Leon.
Okay, what is the question? I can.
Below the 10 word thing I posted, the link. It's just below that. If you don't see it, refresh. That's why I didn't see it. I refreshed.
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions, so I'm gonna refresh. Okay. Okay, just bear with me. I'm just refreshing my page so I can see some more questions. All right. Let me just below. Okay. Okay, William Leong asks again, will a practitioner gain special abilities, energy, knowledge, or any other effects during the practice process? If you're engaged in deity practices for a specific purpose, for example, the deity practices I spoke about earlier, specifically to help with spirit afflictions, you won't gain any particular ability, but it will help to stop the affliction, as it were. If you're talking about gaining abilities or knowledge, this actually comes about when you engage in deity practices, and when you actually study more of the Dharma, and you actually basically implement that within your life. Now, what I mean by this is, for example, remembering your previous lives. It's an ability that you can have. It's ability that you can develop, but it's not an ability that Buddhists should aim to do. Okay, it is basically just a side product of what happens, and that actually comes about more from a meditational aspect of it rather than a deity practice aspect of it. Higher practices, you can develop certain different abilities, but you only develop them if there's a need for it. Okay, you want to use them if there's a need for it to help somebody. If it's just about developing it just to have it because it's cool to be able to, have this new ability or whatever, it's most likely it's not going to happen, right? Then I've got two more questions. One is from Chung and one is from David Chu. I'm going to answer David Chu's question first, and I'm going to finish with Chung's question, and then that will be it because we have gone over quite a bit today. David Chu asks, how often do we sang our environment? Okay, you can do it. It's basically up to you. You can do it every day if you want to. I used to do it every day here in Kechara Forest Retreat, and then Rinpoche said I didn't have to do it every single day. You can do it every other day, or every 3 or 4 days, or maybe even once a week, maybe once a month. It's up to you. There's no specific timing or time frame that you have to do it. It's not one of these things that you have to do on a regular basis. You can even do it every, once in a while, where you just want to clear the energy clear any negative energy that may be in your space, you can just do it then. Otherwise, if you do want to do it regularly, which you can do if you want, you can do it regularly, even up to every day if you want. All right. But obviously, it does take a little bit of time to do, so you just have to keep that and bear that in mind when you're thinking about when you want to do it. Now, okay, the last question: when we take refuge, is this already a buffer from spirit disturbance? Right, from Chung. Okay, Chung is asking, when you take refuge, okay, where Chung is coming from this is because we say that the ultimate form of any protection from spirits, from black magic, is actually taking refuge. Now, Chung is absolutely 100% correct. When you take refuge, if you're taking refuge properly, if you take refuge with 100% conviction, nothing will be able to harm you. All right? No spirit, no ghost, no non-physical entity. You will not be afflicted by black magic, nothing. That is the power of refuge. However, as with anything in Buddhism, everything is a process. So even if you think you have 100% refuge, you may say the words, I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, but do you have that faith? Do you have that conviction in the Dharma? Are you actually living day to day by that faith and by that conviction of having refuge in the three jewels? Or are you literally only saying it 3 times a day at the beginning of your sadhana? All right? There's a difference between saying something and living something. All right? So when you live refuge, when you live on your faith in the Buddha Dharma to transform your life to reach enlightenment, when you have faith in the beings who have already reached enlightenment, when you have faith in the process, when you have faith in yourself to be able to become a Buddha, then that refuge will be the protection that you need to, from negative spirits, negative disturbances, what have you. However, on our level, we most probably haven't reached anywhere near that stage. So even though we might say we take refuge, how much refuge have you actually taken within that 15 seconds of taking refuge? Taking refuge is actually a process. It's actually a big process. Now I'm going to get into another, okay, my next session is going to be on taking refuge, and then that's what I'm going to do next, all right? Taking refuge, all right? A lot of us don't do it properly. I'm not going to get too much into it now, but a lot of us don't do it properly. So when we don't do it properly, when you don't have that full faith, that full conviction, it does allow, you are still at kind of the mercy of that negative connection between yourself and spirits, so they can still disturb you. So in essence, Chung is right that if you take refuge, that is a buffer against spirit disturbances and things like that. And it is actually the ultimate buffer between yourself and spirit disturbances or the negative effects of your karma. The ultimate, all right? But a lot of us, because we haven't got to that stage where we have proper conviction when we're taking refuge, we do need to rely on deity practices. We do need to rely on mantras, on certain things, because the way the enlightened beings have manifested those prayers and those mantras is specifically to help us with those issues, with those spirit disturbances and everything like that. All right. So I'm going to leave it there. Thank you very much for joining today's session. Okay. So my next session, I'll be talking about taking refuge and how to do that properly and what to think and what to visualize and the actual importance of taking refuge. Which is, thank you, Chung. You've given me an idea for my next session. It's a very good one. The next session, which today's Monday. So today's Monday, tomorrow is Tuesday. So tomorrow is Pastor David, who will be online at 9 p.m. Again, here on the Kechara Facebook page. Please do join us again tomorrow. So thanks for joining. Stay home, stay safe, and stay spiritual. Thank you.